Hello and welcome to the Able to Care podcast. I'm Andy Baker and today's episode is your guide to dementia from the heart of training, care and real human connection. I'm joined by Meghan Earle, our lead dementia trainer. And over the last 3 years, Meghan has delivered training with the Alzheimer's Society, Dementia Forward and Able training. Her passion is unmatched when it comes to raising awareness and deepening understanding and helping staff connect meaningfully with people living with dementia. So today we're going to explore the core questions that confuse and worry family and carers of what really happens when someone is diagnosed, how to engage compassionately, how to communicate when memories fade, and what systems must change. This isn't just theory, it's a conversation meant to equip, comfort and transform how we care. Hello, Meghan. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. That was a beautiful introduction.
Thank you very much. I'm practiced.
Very good.
So wonderful to see you. It's obviously, I know you're coming in the office tomorrow, but we thought we'd do a bit of a virtual podcast, and we're going to be trying to get you on a little bit more and have some more conversations because it's been, I can't remember when you did your first episode with me.
I feel like it was winter. Maybe last year.
Maybe last year, yeah. It's winter.
I've delivered a lot of training since then.
Oh, you have indeed.
I spend my life on the road, as you know.
Yeah,
and
I do.
And I've been up and down the country, literally, all the way up to Scotland. So it's amazing, wonderful to be back, chatting about my favourite subject in the world.
Absolutely. And I say there's nobody more passionate that I know of, really. So as far as, so I thought we'd do a bit of an episode, and it's a bit of a kind of almost a guide too. It's a little bit of a kind of maybe the first one that people should watch of our series related to dementia. So we're just going to go through a few questions and we'll kind of answer them together. So starting off, the question that, what is dementia is obviously, the question we always start off with when we're teaching. So we're not just talking medically now, though. We're looking at how to explain it. How do you find the best way to explain it to family members or to carers who are kind of hearing about it for the first time?
Thank you. Good question. What I was going to say as well is that I've had a lot of people in my personal life, I'm sure you have too, that say, my loved one has just had a diagnosis. What do I do? And I often find that for whatever reason, there is a diagnosis and then nothing. And a lot of loved ones take to Google, as we all do. And when you type in dementia, there is such a minefield of information. Even dementia-specific websites have so much information, it's hard to know where to start and what to look for. And because there are so many symptoms that are so different associated with dementia, no one is going to have the same set of symptoms. So you might be researching symptoms that don't happen and won't happen. And so the other issue potentially is that someone's got a diagnosis of dementia. What does that mean? Which type of dementia? I often say, do you know which type of dementia? And the most common answer I get is, no, it's just dementia. So maybe GPs aren't giving a specific answer. Maybe someone's too far progressed in their journey that it's difficult to get further testing. Or there might be a whole host of reasons, but often it's just one blanket diagnosis of dementia. So the scientific answer is that dementia is the umbrella term used to describe a set of symptoms. It's not an illness in itself, but rather a collection of symptoms that basically describe damage to the brain. The word dementia comes from the word demens, which means out of one's mind. It's already not particularly positive. And I often ask this question at the start of all of my dementia awareness training. What comes to your mind when you think of the word dementia? The most common answers I get are memory loss, followed by confusion, frustration, aggression, isolation, withdrawal, loss of this, loss of that. And I do make an observation that it's pretty negative. It's not a judgment, but there are a lot of really negative words associated with that word dementia. And I'm asking the question, what shapes that? because a lot of people that I train have never come across dementia at all. So where is that awareness coming from? Where do you think it comes from?
Well, I mean, obviously, it is the representations on TV and the media and how it's referred to, but also there's obviously we know certain adverts that have been out there that we don't necessarily agree with as far as painting that very kind of negative picture. But also, as we always talk about, the human beings, we are drawn towards the negative. The negative is what sells a story. And we have to kind of, it's like the term living well with dementia, that some people, it is a tough time, finding out you have a terminal illness, essentially, a life-altering illness, isn't going to come with yays. It's always going to come with that negative slant to it. I think there's initial, the grieving process we have to recognize first, don't we? What you were saying there about that dementia, exactly the same experience for myself, just asking that question. Yeah, I don't know, it's just dementia. Heard quite an interesting thing of referring to it and was always referring to a dementia, not so always the A before dementia. So they have a dementia, they're living well with a dementia. Because then you go, well, what do you mean a dementia? Well, there's lots of different sorts. And kind of then getting it across that way. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, not a lot of people know that there are over 250 listed types of dementia, 150 subtypes of Alzheimer's alone, and then we've got mixed dementia. But like I said before, more often than not, there is just one blanket diagnosis of dementia. I'm not calling anyone out, but I train a lot of GPs, and when I ask them how many types of dementia are there, they say 4. And so maybe it is that doctors know a little bit about a lot of things, or maybe there just isn't the push, isn't the fight to get a clearer diagnosis, because dementia is associated with older people, and there's almost a bit of a write-off. Oh, it's dementia, so what's the point? Because there's no cure, what's the point seeing what type it is? Whereas if we know where it affects the brain, what the progression might look like, we can definitely help support a little bit better. But also what I was going to say is some of those words like frustration, aggression, isolation, I don't think they're symptoms of dementia. I think they're symptoms of distress.
Yeah, the social engagement, the environment and social factors, absolutely. Yeah.
And we've supported so many people that live well with their dementia. And I'm not going to gloss over it. Would any of them choose to have dementia? Probably not. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Of course, you'd rather not have it. But if you are going to live for 20, 30, 40 years with dementia, I want you to have the best life that you can. And I think the most important thing that we can start with is understanding what's going on in the brain, body, memory, and how we can help you live as well and as independently as possible. So I know that when I say, would you say your loved one is living well with dementia? That's my own opinion. And it might be a loved one's opinion as well. And we're only going on what we see, which is hopefully signs of contentment, relaxation, no visible signs of distress, but also being able to recognize it when they are, because we're all distressed, aren't we?
One of the things is, obviously, if we were just helping somebody who's hearing about the diagnosis the first time, we've already kind of touched on the fact that, it is more than just memory loss. So obviously it does affect sort of every part of the brain at some point in their journey, whether it be perception, whether it be sensory processing, whether it be communication, whether it be, emotional regulation. And all of those factors are all kind of part and parcel. So it isn't just memory.
Yeah. One thing that I find really helpful is to show my delegates a picture of the brain. And to simplify it, we've got different lobes of the brain responsible for different things. And dementia just depends where in the brain that damage is. So my nan had a stroke that affected her frontal lobe. Her memory was fine. It was her behaviour and personality that we saw changes to. if dementia was to affect your occipital lobe, you might have issues with vision, depth perception, peripheral vision, colour changes. If it was your parietal lobe, it might be things like sequencing, reading and writing, letters, numbers, knowing your left and right. So it all depends where in the brain that damage is. And what we saw with my nan is one thing at a time that wasn't quite right, and had we known what was going on, we could have helped her to have lived as independently as possible.
I think you've kind of started to answer the second question there, really, which is, so many people might be kind of wondering, as you said, they sometimes might delay the diagnosis, but sometimes people aren't always aware of what the earliest signs of dementia might be. So what would you say are the earliest signs someone should look out for with dementia, not just the typical forgetting names?
Great question. So something that I've seen sometimes is when people start to get a lot of bruises from bumping into furniture around the house. That only concerns me because you're usually aware of where your furniture is. And so if you start bumping into things, I would question, is there something going on with your vision, peripheral vision? I know someone that started walking out in the road in front of cars, and we'd think, did you not see? But her vision was affected, her peripheral vision was affected, and she wasn't seeing it. Things like reading and writing difficulties, if it's something that you've not struggled with before. Things like left and right, lots of us get that wrong. I teach a fitness class, and my left is right because I'm facing my attendees. So I get my left and right confused. But if that's something that you didn't before and then you were, that could potentially be an issue there. Maybe mood changes. And again, I use that word typical. I use that word typical quite a lot because what we notice in dementia is behaviour that isn't typical, or sequencing that isn't typical, or short-term memory loss that isn't typical, because we all have short-term memory loss. It's when there's a noticeable change. So if there was a big mood change, then something's going on. We just need to question what that is, right?
Yeah. I think that's it, isn't it? It's, as you said, it's typical. It's moving off what we perceive as a baseline of that particular individual in really whatever area that is, but that we know might be related to the brain. When someone is first diagnosed, what's one thing you think families often don't know, but would probably really benefit from knowing?
You are not on your own. And there is a huge amount of support out there if you know where to find it.
I think that's it, isn't it? There is loads of resources. There's so much information. And this is where sometimes, the internet is the biggest gift, but also the worst enemy, that it can feel like you can't see the wood for the trees. You don't know what is a good or bad resource. But there are some amazing charities we work with that, do offer a multitude of resources, and not just information as well. So support groups, helplines, Dementia Forward have their helpline that obviously anybody within the North Yorkshire area can kind of call, but anybody can, and they'll direct them through to the options and other possibilities. And that's it. And there is community groups. There is dementia cafes. There is, like, most towns will have something in, but I think...
And some people don't know that it might be worth talking to a solicitor to help plan for the future. It might be worth talking to a care home manager or a home care company just to see what the options are if and when you might need it. It might be worth talking to occupational health to see if there are any adaptations to be made around the home. There's so many people tell me that they didn't realise that they could access that support, and that you can get modifications in the home and still live at home. And as well, social services historically hasn't had an amazing reputation, but they are there for a reason, to offer some kind of support if and when needed. So I think what often happens is the diagnosis of dementia is late for whatever reason, and it almost gets left to the point of crisis. and now suddenly I need a care home, or suddenly I need to do lasting power of attorney, or suddenly, and sometimes it's after a crisis like a fall, or when someone goes wandering, gets lost, then the support kicks in. Whereas if you knew about it earlier, you could put those plans into place, or even just be aware of them before the crisis happens.
I think that's it, didn't it? I think there's an expectation sometimes that people have about the system. Like, I know my dad did this, so related to his illness, which was, well, they haven't contacted me, and if there was something wrong, they would have contacted me. If there's something they could do, they'd contact me. I think that's not the way the system is able to work at the moment, in the fact that it's overstretched. You have to pester, you have to ask, you have to go, what else? What are the resources available? What can you do? Because most GPs have like social prescribers, for instance, but most people don't even know what they are, never heard of them, never spoken about them. But if you don't know about them and they don't know about you, then your paths will never cross. So actually having that little bit of information. Yeah.
If you're already feeling overwhelmed with that diagnosis of that blanket word dementia, what does that even mean? Are you up for the fight?
Yeah.
Are you up for going and looking and trying to find where these services are and how to access them? And yeah.
Yeah, it kind of be beneficial, really. Anybody who got a diagnosis is almost like there should be an immediate kind of support, like immediately flagged up, going, right, you'll get a call next week with somebody who's going to signpost you and give you all the information you need and walk you through this journey, rather than leaving you on your own. Like, here's details of all the solicitors in your town that deal with this sort of stuff. Here's, so they could kind of help them and coach them. But
I have a friend who recently told me that her mum's been diagnosed with vascular dementia, and she said, I just have no idea what to expect, what to do now. And so I went for coffee with her, and I just talked through, what is vascular dementia? How does it differ from Alzheimer's? What are some of the symptoms that you might see? And with some of them, she said, yeah, I've seen those symptoms. And others, she said, I haven't seen them yet, and I just told her what might happen in the future. And just having that conversation is so helpful to know what might be coming. What do I need to prepare for? Because a lot of dementia is unknown. And we've seen some of the adverts that are more negative, that talk about loss of memory, loss of personality, loss of awareness, but actually help me know specifically what this might look like. And I think that's
memory is quite a complex thing anyway, isn't it? And people just kind of go, you lost your memory, but like, there's so much to memory as far as, episodic, somatic, procedural, short-term working memory, and all of these different things. So what am I going to remember and not remember? What does it mean to lose my memory?
And even in the world that we live in, having moved away from words like demented, senile, deranged, awful words like that, we still say things like, I'm losing my mind today. I've lost my marbles today. I've lost the plot today. And that's part of our language.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Well, it's definitely not, when it creates that stigma around it, doesn't it? It creates that fear, or it just promotes that negativity around it, 100%.
But we all have short-term memory loss. So there's a difference. And it's just understanding that I think would be helpful.
Now, I know that one of your biggest passions is connection and meaningful engagement, and really connecting with somebody on a deep level. So when people are experiencing a loved one and their memory is slipping, what does meaningful engagement look like?
I think it's about connecting with the person where they are now. And that might be different to your expectation of the person before.
It's a principle of acceptance, isn't it? It's that principle of your thoughts and feelings wherever you are right now must be valid, even if they're not based on what I perceive as reality or what I see as where you are when you are, but they are wherever you are and whenever you are. And therefore I must focus on those emotions. I must focus on the truth of your thoughts and feelings rather than the truth of the situation.
Yeah, there might be things that you used to enjoy doing and now you don't, and that's okay. Is there an element of the thing that you used to do that I can bring into your life now? Or do we try something else? I'm not going to give up on you. I often hear language like they don't want to do anything anymore.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Yeah.
They refuse to do anything.
Yeah.
We've just not found it yet.
Yeah.
Or maybe the approach isn't quite right. We will find something. We will find something that will engage you.
Do you think that comes down to a lack of imagination, or do you think it comes down to just a limitation of resources?
I personally think it comes down to not understanding dementia. I've mentioned this on the last podcast I was on. I remember Mum used to do this, but she can't now. Dad used to do this, but he can't now. And I often think, but what was it about it that they loved? Take gardening, for example. All right, we might not be able to get on our hands and knees and dig in the dirt, but could I get the smell of the flowers that you liked planting? Could we mess around with some soil? Even in the later stages of dementia, even someone that's nursed in bed, I can still get you gardening somehow. So I wonder if sometimes it's, well, they can't do it, so that's the end of that, rather than asking that question, why? Why did you like reading? Was it the fantasy? Was it the imagination? Was it the story? I know of a lady who passed away recently with a book in her hand. She hadn't read for years, but she loved the feel of a book, and she still had a bookcase full of books in her room, in her care home, where she'd not read a single one. So rather than looking at the logical fact, she can't read anymore. Why did she love it? Why did she love reading? What was it about it? And can I get that? Can I still use that?
Absolutely. Even the emotional connectivity of the nostalgia, if you like, of remembering reading, remembering the stories, remember the book, means just a book in her hand is going to trigger this multitude of neurons firing, kind of going, all of those positive memories and things like that are going to be coming back, not as logical memories, but as emotional memories. So isn't that meaningful?
Yeah, absolutely. And if in the earlier stages of dementia, somebody becomes more withdrawn and they don't want to go out as much, my friend was telling me that her mum just doesn't want to leave the house anymore. There's a reason for that. So rather than she doesn't want to leave the house anymore, and that's the end of it, why? Why doesn't she? Because her vision's been affected and she's anxious on uneven ground? Is it because she feels the temperature more and she's colder, so she'd rather stay indoors? Is it that the people that she used to be friends with are struggling to understand her dementia, so there's a breakdown in communication? Is it that the group's moved to a new building and she's not recognised that, so she feels really uneasy when she gets there? Those are all really understandable. And possibly we could do something about all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if not, could we bring the group to the house? I don't know,
Absolutely. It's looking adaptive, but it's that, as we reiterate an awful lot, it's a detective rather than a judge. It's not finishing with that's the end. It's a case of, this is just a start. This is the exploration. And I know you and I are doing some work at the moment on our adaptive carer model and things like that, which will be unveiling soon. I'm doing some work in the background on that. So we'll have to do an episode on that sometime, which I know is, we're looking at taking all these different methodologies and principles that we've, been working with for years and trying to put it in a way of like, what do we need to be able to be there for that person, to have that quality of life, to engage in those activities, to provide the engagement that they need. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah. So, I know that we've both witnessed numerous mistakes that carers or staff and whether paid or unpaid family members say or do, things that feel helpful but often hurt. What sort of things have you come across that if you've spotted and you kind of go, oh, just please don't do that?
Where do I start? There's probably a few, to be honest. One thing that I see quite often is a carer approaching somebody with dementia from the back, putting their arms around their shoulders, right next to their face and saying, all right, love, want a cup of tea? Mm-hmm. And when I demonstrate this with my delegates, I make someone feel very uncomfortable because we're not supposed to be in people's personal space that we don't know. Yeah. And yet for some reason it's deemed okay when we're in a carer cared for role, and it seems okay to do that. But when we explore, peripheral vision changes, hearing changes, I've not heard you coming, I've not seen you coming, and you come up from behind and put your arms around my shoulders, you could trigger that fight, flight, freeze response, and I'm justified to punch you in the face. If that doesn't happen, I might still constantly be on alert because I'm not quite relaxing because there's potential danger behind me. So that's one thing that a lot of people do with really good intentions. They've got a lovely relationship with their residents, but it's that coming from behind approach, which I don't love.
Yeah. One of the ones that I find difficult is sometimes it's what I would call accidental infantilization. So
that's my next one.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's suddenly where people speak and suddenly they change, because I understand it from a psychological point of view, with transference and counter-transference, this person may act sometimes in a childlike way. So that sometimes triggers our parental self when we go into kind of old scripts and parental scripts. But there's things like, I remember one time I saw it where it was a lady sat round a table with some other residents of a particular care home, and for other reasons, her appetite maybe wasn't there. Maybe she was struggling. Again, we'd investigate the reasons why that was the case. And I don't think the carer was meaning anything negative by it, but it was a comment that was kind of thrown. It was a case of, oh, you're not eating very much today. Was that going to be no pudding for you? And I know it was kind of meant in a kind of a playful, flippant way, but I was like, please recognize that you are a younger person speaking to an older person who's currently sat in front of her peers or her colleagues or her friends. You've just pointed out to everybody how she's not eating very much. And then you've kind of infantilized her that she's not going to be allowed any pudding if she doesn't. I know he wasn't really meaning that, but I was thinking, put it into a context. That could feel really demoralizing and infantilizing for an individual.
I once saw a carer call a lady Peggy Poo Poo.
Peggy Poo Poo. Nice.
And I thought, I've got a healthy brain, but I don't want to be called Meggy Moo Moo.
You know, I mean, that's was going to be a new nickname. I've got a name badge already for next time you're in.
Peggy Poo Poo. This is a lady who is non-verbal. Has she said in her care plan that she wants to be called Peggy Poo Poo?
Peggy Poo Poo.
It's it was going to be my next point, and I was going to say what you've just said, in that if I'm using the skills that I came into the world with, as in my strongest, longest running attention needing skills, it doesn't mean I'm a child. I'm just using the skills that I can use because I've had them the longest. If I was trying to get your attention, I'd say, hey. If that didn't work, I'd say, hey. If that didn't work, I'd probably bang the table. If that didn't work, I'd throw something at you. How much bigger do I have to get to get you to see me? And I think humans are incredible at using other communication skills, but we deem them as childlike. And it's like you say, we're engaging that part of the brain that makes us feel like we're the authority and they're the child. One example that I have is I've worked with a beautiful lady called Shirley, and she would say, I need my eye drops. Where are my eye drops? then she'd be told, you've had your eye drops, you're not due for another 3 hours, Shirley. So dismissive, critical, authoritarian. Because Shirley's met with a fight, what does she do?
Fight back. You do what I want. Yeah, absolutely.
She says, I need my eye drops. So we start to get a little bit louder, which makes the carer respond in the same way. Shirley, calm down. You've had your eye drops. She's just had her eye drops. So is it any wonder that her eyes are on her mind? If she's just had her eye drops, her eyes are blurry, she can't really see. I must need my eye drops. It's a really logical thing to say if you've just had your eye drops. Surely a different response could be, are your eyes hurting? My eyes get really dry as well. I'm going to get a warm flannel. Do you think that will help? Or come with me, let's go find your eye drops. Can we give placebo eye drops? Can she hold her own bottle of eye drops? She's been doing them herself for 50 years. But what we actually got is a huge escalation in distress. I heard horrible terms like kicking off and aggressive and challenging, and Shirley ended up being sedated. That's not Shirley's fault. The approach was parental, infantilizing. Would you like to go to activities today? What's activities?
If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. One of the common ones that I know is often mentioned, if someone with dementia frequently asks, I want to go home, how should we respond?
That's one I hear a lot. Can I tell you what we won't say?
Mm-hmm.
What I hear a lot, especially in a care home, the door doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
When does a door not work?
Yeah, that would be scary if a door didn't work. Well, how would you get out in a fire then?
The key doesn't work, but I've watched people come in and out all day.
Mm-hmm.
We're all locked in. Nope. I've got a healthy brain. If you tell me I'm locked in anywhere, I will be out the window.
Yep, absolutely.
Once I heard, this is a school, we all live here. What? It's just creating a false memory.
Yep.
Often I will say to my delegates when we use this example, if I said that the course was finished and you could go home now halfway through the day, would you? And they all look very sheepish, but they go, yeah, we would. Why would you go home? Because your home is your everything, your familiarity, your smell, your spot on the sofa, even though there's 5 other spots. I'm looking at my spot that I've worn down. There's no spots to sit on, but I sit in one spot. The TV's at the volume I like it. My snack cupboard is full of the snacks I like. I've got my bedding in my bed, which is the best bed. Of course you want to go home. That's my starting point. Of course you want to go home. I am so sorry that you're stuck here. I might try and say, the doctor's asked us to look after you for a little while. I know you feel fine. You look fine. I'm so sorry. And then this is where I get resistance, right? If somebody is that desperate to get out of a space, get out of the space. I think it's a basic human right to want to get out. And maybe I want to go home is I want to get out of this space. So then maybe it's the environment, maybe it's the light, maybe it's the sound, maybe it's the people, maybe it's the temperature. Can we get out? So again, I'm asking why this, why now? Why do you want to go home? Because something here doesn't feel safe. So is there anything I can do to make this feel safer? What I'm not going to do is, you live here now, don't you? This is a care home. You live here now. No, I don't. This is not my home.
That's great. I love that. I love that answer. I love that going with the feelings, and it feels counterintuitive, doesn't it? And I understand that, you know, carers are going to kind of feel, well, we don't want to apologize. We don't want to say we're sorry you're here because we're trying to provide something really good. But as you said, like, yeah, but I'd still rather stay in my own home than a hotel bed. That hotel could be incredibly luxurious. It could be the most amazing hotel anywhere, but it's not my bed and it's not my stuff and it's not my sofa seat. And absolutely.
One example that I often share is I worked with a gentleman called Eric, and he would struggle with sundowning. So the light changes outside, it's time for the day to end and something else to happen. And he will say, where's my car? Where's my car? And he'll be told from one carer, it's in the car park, isn't it, Eric? So he goes and looks for his car and he can't see it. But he's not really getting an answer. So he'll step it up a little bit. Where's my car? Where's my car? And somebody else will say to him, your brother's got your car. Why does my brother have my car? So that causes more questions, more confusion, more frustration. So Eric will step it up a little bit further and he'll start following other carers into other residents' rooms, which causes the carers to become a little bit agitated. Eric, go and sit down. We've told you we'll be with you in a minute. So again, dismissive, critical, authoritarian. Because sundowning typically happens around meals and meds time, the carers are quite stretched. So they're quite dismissive in that, go and sit down and we'll deal with you in a minute. Eric will be told your car's in the garage, your wife's got your car, you don't have a car. So he's told different things by different people, but he'll get to the point where he's trying to break down the door. He's shouting, help. Again, this is when they used to ring me and say, come and deal with Eric, he's kicking off. There's very little I can do at that point when he's at a danger to himself and other people. The best thing I could do is what I said before, is try and meet him where he's at. Eric, is no one listening to you? Come on, let's go. And I'm opening the door that he's trying so desperately to get out of. Rather than using any kind of physical restraint, let's go then, let's go. I have got a huge risk on my hands because there's no garden at this care home. Eric could just run. He's a lot bigger than me, but I take this strong hand-under-hand contact, calm my breathing. As soon as we get into the lift, he never asks about the car again. That tells me it was never about the car.
I need to escape. I need out.
Why this? Why now? Where is my safety? Where is my escape if I need it? So Thankfully, it's a good story. We walk around the car park. We talk about his life. Never mentions the car. Talk about his job. He loved his job. And about halfway around the car park, he says, I'm sorry about this, love. Mm. And that breaks my heart. Why are you sorry? Sorry for having feelings? Sorry for needing to know where your safety was? Thankfully, we get to the front of the care home and he says, I've stayed in this hotel.
Yeah.
You recognize
Let's go in. Yeah.
So I say, have you? Not yes, you have, and not no, you haven't, but have you?
Yeah.
He says, I know which room I've stayed in this hotel. and I can say, will you show me? Let's go and sit together. Let's have a cup of tea, shall we? And that connection, which is so important, rather than dismissal. And the fight I often get is there isn't enough time and there isn't enough staff, which is the problem nationwide, right? Let's stop talking about it. Let's do something about it. My argument is Eric will probably end up being on a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1. But if we were able to respond at 4:30 when it happened, we're not having to do that. But also, if we know that Eric struggles with that time of day, can we put an activity in place that he will really be engaged with, that is meaningful to him, so he doesn't feel the need to ask where his escape is? And we can get through that time together and come out the other side.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story, Meghan. It really is. And a great example of that little extra time and attention in the moment, if that had been done earlier on, would have actually significantly saved time. And I think that's where we both come from the same side on that the preventative rather than reactive, that sometimes staff, they don't have time, so they end up procrastinating the small problems, meaning that the small problem becomes a huge problem, which then takes more staff time, more staff attention, de-escalation, but then a huge write-up as well, because it's now been a major incident, whereas actually it was, hey, let's just go for a quick walk, and it'd take us 2 minutes around the garden.
Don't fight the fire.
Yeah.
Find out what caused it in the first place.
Yeah.
That's what you talk about a lot in your courses, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's kind of the first aim is to put the fire out, stop it from getting to a blazing inferno. Just, hey, the embers are starting to burn. What can we do to prevent this from getting any worse? And rather than just trying to, I don't know, almost throw fuel on it by kind of going, oh, not right now. Oh, we can't deal with this. Just thinking the fire's going to go away by itself. Yeah. We're looking at, as you say, what's the cause? What's going on? What's this person feeling right now? What's wrong for them? Or what might have happened in the past that could be presenting in the present? And as you say, if somebody's going, I want a mode of transport, there is potentially, if we're going into basic reflexes, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which one of those might it be? It could be flight. Let's let them run. Let's let them go. Do you think there is? I mean, you gave the example there, though, with that particular care home, that obviously they didn't have a specific safe space. So there was a vulnerability, a risk as far as, Eric going out into that environment, that if you had decided to bolt, there's nothing that you potentially could have done. Do you think more care homes need to have that consideration, and not to obviously make it a gated or locked gated community, but think about where are our open spaces? Where are the places we can direct people to get into nature, to get outside, to get to a different place?
Yeah. And I think when I do share that story, I totally understand that I was taking on a massive risk. Eric was bigger than me. He could have run, and then it would have been my fault. And there's a lot of blaming and shaming, isn't there, in the care industry? Whose fault was it? But I think that's why it's so important to understand why this, why now, when you're doing your risk assessment, and also understand if I did want an escape, if I was saying I want to go home, or I need to go get the kids from school, or I need to go to work, I need to do something. I need something to change from the situation that I'm in now. Where can I go that is away from this? And also, I remember when I've worked in 3 different care homes, you become desensitized to the noises. There is shouting sometimes, there's buzzers going off. If there aren't enough staff to answer a door, that door buzzer just keeps going off and keeps going off and keeps going off. There is a TV in the lounge that's quite loud and might not be what you want to watch. There are all sorts of different smells going on. And so for me personally, I live on my own. I'm used to silence and quiet and solitude. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I hate it. When I go to a children's party, I am beyond overwhelmed, and I see all the other parents just getting on with it. And there's a child treading a biscuit into the floor, and there's music that's far too loud, and it's like, and there's children screaming and fighting and trying to wrestle a child into a pram and all of this kind of stuff. And I want to get under the table and cry because it is not my environment. And all these parents have gotten used to it because maybe they have it all the time and they're used to going to children's parties. But when we talk about the care home environment, which I realise I've talked a lot about today, it's such a different space to your home and your familiarity. And as a staff member, I think we just get used to the environment that we work in. When I used to work in Argos, I'd hear the beep of when people would buy items and order number 65 to your collection point, please.
That's a pretty good impression, Meghan.
Thank you. Cash number 2, please. But I got used to it. I got used to the noises of my environment. And I think as staff members working in that chaotic, intense environment, maybe we just get used to it. But for our residents, it's a totally different environment. So is it any wonder that you want to get out and we get to go home?
Yeah.
We get to leave. We get to compartmentalize. I do this, which is quite intense and noisy for 6 hours, but then I get in my car and I put my music on and I go to the shop and I get my comfort food and then I go home to my world. Yeah.
And it's so easily taken for granted, isn't it? And although some people thrive and some people really enjoy, my late Auntie Vera was actually very happy in a care home. Yeah, she enjoyed it.
There are some incredible spaces and beautiful connections with people as well.
Absolutely. I think sometimes, I think there is this stigma around some care homes, because we do hear the horror stories, but actually both my gran and my auntie both actually had quite a positive time. They were exposed to more social. The staff were lovely at both homes and things like that. So I think there is this also, don't you put me in care, but I'm afraid there may be a point that many of us will need to be in a care environment, and it's not as bad as sometimes the media portrays, but there is good and bad. And that's
I bring this up all the time, that phrase, promise me you won't put me in a home. And a lot of people kind of chuckle, yeah, I've heard that phrase quite a lot. And I ask the brutal question, why do we feel like that? Because care homes historically haven't felt like very safe places. When I ask people about the smell of a care home, it's not generally a positive smell. Something has to change because we're not able to make that promise as easily anymore. Typically, family setup looks different. We're living longer, we're working longer. If there are broken families, there's not always the ability to stay at home and care for a loved one. And it might be that a care home is the solution. So something needs to be better. We need to change the stigma around care homes because there are some incredible ones. I always say, don't be fooled by the fresh flowers in the foyer and the classical music and the organic food. My first question would always be, what training is provided? Is it face-to-face? And is there a lot of it? Because that would be my biggest priority, is do we understand dementia? Do we understand how to effectively communicate with people who might have communication difficulties? And there are some incredible care settings in the UK, but it definitely needs to be better, in my opinion. My humble opinion.
I think it's a humble opinion, but it's a very, very valid one. So I think, this is a bugbear from both of us. And obviously we are in the industry, but both of us kind of got into the industry and started doing what we do because we knew we could make a bigger difference by, rather than doing it ourselves, by hopefully teaching a group of 12 other people to do it. That's why I started my company. That's why you became a trainer, because you saw real value in what we have to offer. And I think when we're talking about how can organizations kind of embed dementia understanding into what they do, it shouldn't be one-off training. It can't, as you said, do they have face-to-face training? And there is some amazing e-learning products out there. There's some really good ones, and some virtual training now that's really good. But there is a big difference. If we've ranted about it before, and I know I've ranted about it many times. But if we're trying to promote person-centered, but then we're not providing person-centered training, how can the staff be person-centered? If the training is generic and just hey, tick on these few boxes and watch these few videos and answer your questions at the end, then how can they understand their residents and the individuals they're supporting or their loved one? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It seems obvious.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of e-learning that is out there, because it isn't deemed mandatory by a lot of care settings, it's often optional. In my two last care homes, it was optional and it was e-learning. And the type of e-learning that it was click, 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 take me to the test. Are you taking anything in? And what I often say on my courses is, I actually care about my job. I want you to get something out of this. There isn't a test. There isn't role play if you don't want it. But tell me what you are struggling with, because I've been there. I've been a carer. I've been an activities coordinator. I've been a mental health support worker. Tell me what you're struggling with. Be honest with me. And what we do in our training is individual support. We are struggling with this gentleman who is struggling with this. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And that's what I love about what I do, is it's person-centered in that it's one specific person. What else do you struggle with? Okay, sometimes we see this behaviour. Okay, let's talk about it. What do you do at the moment? Why is that not working? Let's talk about why it might not be the best option. Is there anything else we can do? And that's the beauty about dementia. I often get it wrong. I'm not a superhero. And I do often share my stories of when I've got it wrong, because it's always learning. And my intention is I'm trying to be better. So rather than saying, oh, it's just their dementia, that's why they're like that. Is it? Could there be something else? Could we try something else? And, there are occasions where it doesn't work. Okay, is there anything else we can try? Is there anything else we can try? And something that I said right at the start, it's not a write-off. Don't give up on me because I've got dementia, because I might be displaying behaviour that's tricky. Don't give up on me. There's always something we can try. And that's where I want people to get. I'm not giving you the solutions, but hopefully the intention.
I know both of us have encountered training courses where you do have that narrative where it does feel like, oh, we've tried everything. We've tried that, didn't work. Tried that, didn't work. Tried that, didn't work. And this is the thing, isn't it? If that's their mindset, as they're coming into a training course with an expert that's able to potentially guide them to see things differently, how would they be engaging with e-learning? They would just be going, this is a waste of time because nothing works. They're not going to be kind of going, oh, let's really investigate this. Let's talk about this. Let's view every slide and really analyze, because the mindset's wrong. And I know that's something, passionate able training is a case of we focus first, but many care staff know what to do. They know how to be compassionate. They know how to be thoughtful. They do it with a toddler if a toddler was upset. They wouldn't, if a toddler comes to them going, my pet's just died, they don't go, oh, yeah, we'll come to you later. Oh, we'll deal with it. Oh, you'd focus on the empathy. You'd connect. So carers know what to do. To just their mindset's wrong in that moment of how they should be applying it.
And I honestly think it's intention and awareness at the same time. In the last job that I worked in a care home, my beautiful lady Nora, who I've already talked about, was particularly distressed. And this is someone who does experience hallucinations, but this particular day was unlike anything I'd seen before. And I went to the prescribing nurse in the home and said, I think something's wrong with Nora today. And her answer was, she has dementia. Okay, so that's the answer that I got. And Nora's daughter rang me the next day and said, I think something's wrong with Mum. And I said, yeah, I know, I'm on it. And I went to the nurse and it was a different nurse. And I said, I think something's wrong with Nora. She has dementia. And I said, I think it might be something else. And she said, no, this is dementia. Okay. And I went home and wrestled with that and was really troubled about it. But that's the nurse. I'm not a nurse. She must know. She must know more than I do. And it took till the Friday to realise that she had a a really bad urine infection. And that sudden change in behaviour was because of a reason. But this is something that I've definitely learned in the 3 years that I've only got 10 years experience in dementia care, which isn't that long compared to a lot of the people that I train. But if you've not learned about this, you will just plod on in your role thinking, yeah, it's just dementia. I know what I'm talking about because I see it all the time. And so I try and use that a little bit in my training. There's a possibility you might learn something today, or hopefully just change your thinking a little bit. Could this be something else? Maybe.
Yeah, love that. And I think, that emulates. I just say it's been a genuine pleasure having a conversation with you, Meghan, because we don't get to do this very often, really, do we? As far as like just talk about this, obviously it's usually different parts of the country or doing different courses and stuff like that. So it's genuinely a pleasure.
We don't get to train each other, do we?
We don't.
We train other people, but we never get to talk about what we talk about, which is
absolutely
lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, it's been a genuine pleasure. And I say we're going to make this a bit more regular. We're going to have some more episodes with you. I know we're going to do another one because you've got a bit of a mission as far as raising awareness within faith and community groups. So I'd love to do a bit of a podcast on that to kind of like what can organisations do to be more dementia inclusive. So we'll have another session. But otherwise, thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.